Have you ever felt completely lost in silence, like no words could ever express what your heart is going through? Today, you're about to hear a story that will touch your soul, a journey of love, healing, and hope that proves sometimes the most powerful connections happen when words fail. Before we dive in, if you're someone who believes in the power of stories to inspire and heal, please take a moment to like this video, share and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world and helps us bring more stories like this to you. And for every single one of you who likes and subscribes, I want to send out a prayer of goodness. May you be blessed with good health and strength. May all your burdens be eased. May you find freedom from debt and obstacles. May solutions come to every difficulty you face. And may healing touch those who are sick. May your days be filled with peace and your heart with hope. We would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below and share your thoughts, your experiences, or simply say hello. Your voice matters in this community. Now, let's begin the story. The mornings in Fairhope, Alabama, always carried a hush that felt sacred. Mist would roll in off the bay, slipping between the pine trees and blanketing the old Carter house like a hell breath. Inside, the quiet was thicker, not peaceful, but heavy, as if silence had taken up residence. Miles Carter stood at the kitchen sink, his coffee growing cold in his hand. The house still smelled faintly of the cinnamon candles his wife used to light. He hadn't thrown them out. Couldn't. They were the last thing he hadn't packed away. Everything else that belonged to her had been folded into boxes, tucked into closets, or donated to strangers who would never know the sound of her laughter. His son, Noah, sat at the table, spoon in hand, unmoving. The cereal in front of him had gone soggy. He wasn't looking at the bowl. He wasn't looking anywhere. Miles glanced over, uncertain as always. Noah didn't speak. Not anymore. Not since the funeral. Not since the illness that came like a thief in the night and stole the only person who had ever understood him completely. At 6 years old, Noah had already learned to disappear behind his silence. And no matter how many therapists Miles had paid, or how much time he tried to carve out, nothing broke through. The front door creaked. Miles turned, expecting no one. He wasn't in the mood for a neighbor's casserole or another conversation he didn't know how to end. But the woman who stepped in wasn't from around here. Not anymore. She wore jeans worn at the knees, a navy top with sleeves rolled to the elbows, and she carried herself like someone who had walked through fire barefoot. Her eyes scanned the room and landed on Noah. "Mr. Carter," she asked. Miles straightened. "You must be Jada Rivers." She gave a small nod. "We spoke on the phone. I hope it's still all right that I came by." He motioned stiffly toward the table. "That's him." Jada didn't go straight to Noah. She walked slowly, carefully, like the room had edges she didn't want to trip over. She crouched beside the boy, but didn't speak. She didn't reach out. She simply sat there, matching his silence with her own. It was the first time Miles saw someone not try to fix him. Noah blinked, just once, but his fingers twitched. Jada noticed. She pulled from her bag a small velvet pouch and laid it gently on the table. Then she stood. "I don't do magic," she said to Miles, "but I do listen." Miles folded his arms. "He doesn't talk." "Neither did I, once," she said. "Not with words." He didn't respond to that. Instead, he nodded toward the hallway. "I'll show you his room." They walked past closed doors and faded photographs. The house was too big now. It echoed. Jada took it all in with quiet eyes. In the bedroom, toys lay untouched. Books with cracked spines lined the shelves, but the corners were too crisp. Noah didn't read them anymore. Miles cleared his throat. He used to sleep with her. Every night, she'd sing to him. Sometimes he'd hum along. And now, Jada asked, "He just lies there. Sometimes he makes these sounds. Not crying, just sounds." Jada nodded. "He's still speaking, just not in the language most people listen for." There was something in her tone, something that dug under the skin. She wasn't trying to impress him. She wasn't here to save anyone. She was here because she understood the weight of quiet. They returned to the kitchen to find Noah touching one of the cards from her pouch. The texture of it was rough, stitched with jagged thread. "What's that one?" Miles asked. Jada peered over his shoulder. "Frustrated," she answered. Noah turned it over in his hand, then touched it to his chest. Gently, deliberately. Jada didn't smile. She didn't cheer. She simply said, "That's a start." Miles didn't say anything, but a part of him shifted. Not hope, not yet, but something close. That evening, As the sun slipped behind the oak trees, Miles stood in the hallway outside Noah's room. Jada was sitting beside the bed, humming something low and familiar. Noah's eyes fluttered, his hand resting on a picture of his mother. Miles turned away before he was seen. Back to the kitchen, back to the silence. But for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like the silence was winning. The morning light came earlier than usual, spilling through the windows and painting golden streaks across the hardwood floor. Miles stood outside Noah's room, listening. No sounds, no movement, but a strange new rhythm had settled in the house, like the air had begun to breathe again. Jada was already up, seated on the back porch with a notebook in her lap. She looked out over the fields that stretched behind the house, her pen barely moving, just tapping against the page. Miles opened the screen door slowly. "You always up this early?" he asked. She looked up, squinting against the sun. "I sleep lightly. Comes from living with noise most of my life." Miles leaned against the doorframe. "And now you choose silence." "Now I make peace with it," she said, setting the notebook aside. He nodded slowly. "Noah seemed calmer last night." "He's feeling things," she replied, and started to name them. "That's not small." They both turned as the screen door creaked again. Noah stood barefoot, clutching a card in his small hand. He held it up. "Curious," Jada read aloud. Miles blinked. It wasn't just the card. It was the way Noah looked at her. Not through her, not past her, but at her. Direct, intentional. Jada reached in her bag and pulled out a small box. From it, she took a few art supplies, crayons, texture paper, glue sticks. She spread them on the porch floor. "Today we build a story," she said softly. "No words, just color." Noah sat without being asked. His hands moved carefully, not rushing. He picked up a deep blue crayon, pressed it against the paper, then paused. He glanced at Miles, then continued drawing. For the next hour, neither Jada nor Miles spoke. They simply watched as Noah created. Shapes formed, sharp angles softened, patches of red cut through the blue, and at the center, he glued a small circle, orange and bright. Miles frowned. "What is it?" Noah didn't speak, but he tapped the orange circle with his finger. Then he pointed at the rising sun. Jada whispered, "He's telling us the morning feels warmer today." Miles swallowed. Something clutched tight in his chest. He wasn't used to softness anymore. Not since the funeral. Not since the days had blurred into routine and the nights into ache. Later, while Noah napped on the couch, Jada boiled tea leaves in the kitchen. She moved like she'd lived there her whole life. Not intrusive, just familiar with pain and how to move around it. Miles sat across from her, elbows on the table. "Can I ask you something personal?" "You can," she replied, pouring the tea into mismatched mugs. "That story you told me, about not speaking, was that true?" She handed him a mug, then sat down. "My father was a preacher. Loud man. Loud fists. I learned early that silence was safer." Miles looked at her, eyes narrowed. "How did you get out?" "I stopped waiting for him to change," she said, "and I left before I turned 18. "And Noah?" he asked. "You think he'll ever talk again?" She sipped her tea, letting the steam curl around her face. "Maybe, maybe not. But his voice is already in the room." Miles didn't reply. The truth sat heavy between them. That evening, as twilight melted into night, Noah brought out the drawing he'd made. He placed it on the mantel, beside a faded photo of his mother. Then, with quiet steps, he walked over and laid his head against Jada's arm. Just for a second. It was the first time he'd touched anyone like that since the funeral. Miles stood in the doorway, unseen. He didn't move, didn't speak, but the silence in the room had changed. It no longer sounded like grief. It sounded like something waiting to grow. The next morning, Noah sat cross-legged on the floor, turning the pages of a picture book without reading the words. He ran his fingers over the images, as if feeling for something deeper, something unspoken. Jada watched from the armchair, sipping her tea. Her gaze shifted to Miles, who stood in the hallway watching his son, shoulders tense. She spoke quietly. "Do you have any of his mother's things?" Miles hesitated. "What?" "Because memory needs anchors. And sometimes, those anchors help rebuild trust." He didn't reply. Instead, he walked out of the room. The sound of a drawer opening echoed faintly. Moments later, he returned with a faded shoebox. He set it on the table, then opened it carefully. Inside were photographs, a bracelet made of seashells, a pressed flower in a plastic sleeve, and a music box shaped like a birdcage. Noah looked up. He rose slowly and approached the table, his eyes fixed on the music box. Jada picked it up, wound it gently, and let it play. A soft tune filled the room, delicate, familiar, sad. Noah pressed his hand to the music box and closed his eyes. His breathing slowed. Miles sat beside him. He didn't try to explain anything. He just let the music carry the silence. Jada reached in her bag and pulled out a small sketch pad. She tore out 3 blank pages, laying them side by side. "We're going to make a map," she said. "One that shows what's been lost and what might still be found." Noah took a blue marker and began drawing. The first page was a house with no windows. The second had a figure alone under a black sky. On the third page, he drew 2 figures standing beneath a tree, a small sun above them. Miles leaned in. "That's us." Noah didn't answer, but he didn't look away either. Jada pointed to the tree. "What kind of tree is that?" Noah got up, walked outside, and stood beneath the tall pecan tree near the fence line. He looked up, then returned to the table and shaded in its leaves with green and brown. That afternoon, Jada suggested a drive. "Just a short one," she said. "Get him out of the house. Give the air a chance to move around him." Miles hesitated. "He hates riding since." "I know," she said softly, "but we don't go far." Miles looked at his son, who was already putting on his shoes without being asked. That was answer enough. They drove to an old park near the edge of town. The playground was rusted, the swing chain squeaked, and the grass grew wild in patches. But the lake shimmered, and the breeze brought the scent of pine and water. Noah walked ahead, not running, just moving with quiet purpose. He stopped at the edge of the lake and picked up a flat stone. He threw it once. It sank with a plop. He tried again. The second skipped once before vanishing. Miles joined him, picked up a smooth stone, and with a flick of his wrist, sent it skipping across the water, 3 bounces before it disappeared. Noah's eyes widened. He tried again. 2 skips this time. Jada watched from the bench. A smile curved at her lips. Miles turned to her. "You always know what to do." "No," she said, "but I know when to stop doing nothing." Later, back home, Noah took the pages of his map and taped them to the wall of his bedroom. Then he did something neither of them expected. He walked over to Miles, tapped his arm, and handed him a blank page. Miles stared at it. "You want me to draw something?" Noah nodded. Miles sat on the floor. His hands shook slightly as he picked up a pencil. He drew a picture of himself, holding a smaller figure by the hand. No scenery, no background, just the 2 of them. Noah added to it, drawing a third figure standing beside them. A woman, smiling. It was the first time her face had appeared in their home in over a year. When Jada passed the doorway and saw the drawing, she didn't interrupt. She simply nodded once and moved on. That night, as the house settled into sleep, Miles stood outside Noah's room, staring at the paper taped to the wall. His son's journey had begun in silence, but now the silence was shaping itself into meaning. It wasn't healing yet, but it was a map, and they were all learning how to read it. Rain tapped gently against the windows the next morning. The kind of soft drizzle that turned the world quiet, muffled, reflective. Jada brewed coffee in the kitchen while Noah sat on the couch with a music box, winding it over and over, as if trying to summon something from its tune. Miles stood by the door, arms crossed. He had that look again. Not cold, but guarded. "He's been humming," Jada said. Miles blinked. "What?" "In the car yesterday. And just now, when I came in from the porch." Miles listened carefully, and there it was, soft, under his breath. A humming, shaky but real, following the melody of the music box. Noah didn't look up. His lips never moved, but the sound came from deep inside him. "He's trying," Jada said. "Something's unlocking." Miles sat beside his son. "Hey, buddy, you feel like going somewhere today?" Noah paused, then gave the faintest nod. They ended up at a small community library downtown. The building was old, brickwork faded, but the inside smelled of paper and warmth. Jada led Noah to the children's section. It was quiet, nearly empty, and sunlight poured in through the tall windows. "Let him choose," Jada whispered to Miles. "Doesn't matter what. It's not about the story on the page." Noah ran his fingers along the spines. He stopped, pulled out a book with a cover showing a boy holding a balloon. He sat cross-legged and opened it. "Read with him," Jada said. I haven't read out loud since. Miles sighed. Since her. Then start again, even if your voice shakes. He knelt beside Noah and opened the book to the first page. His voice cracked on the second sentence. On the third, he steadied. Noah didn't react at first, but after the second page, he reached out and turned to the next one himself. A small gesture, but enough. They stayed for an hour, then another. Jada watched them from across the room, sketching quietly. The rain stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds. On the drive home, Miles noticed something else. Noah kept his window open. He used to hate wind on his face, but now he leaned toward it, as if the air could carry him somewhere new. Back at the house, Jada brought out a small whiteboard and a marker. I want to try something, she said. No pressure. She placed the board in front of Noah and wrote one word. Name. Then she tapped her chest. Jada. She pointed at Miles. Miles. She handed the marker to Noah and stepped back. Noah stared at the board. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, slowly, he wrote a single letter. And then another. A breath held in the room. Oh. And finally, with careful precision, H. Noah, written by his own hand. Miles blinked back tears. Jada only nodded. That's his first, Miles said quietly. Since he couldn't finish, but he didn't need to. That night, the house felt different. Still quiet, but it was a new kind of quiet. Not the silence of loss, but the silence that comes before a song. Noah stood in front of the bedroom mirror, holding the whiteboard. He looked at the letters he had written. Then he touched the mirror gently, as if giving himself back to the world. Jada sat on the porch, sipping tea in the dark. Miles joined her, wrapping a blanket over his shoulders. You're teaching him, he said. No, she replied. He's teaching us. Inside, Noah wound the music box one last time. But instead of just listening, he hummed along. Soft, shaky, real. It wasn't language, but it was a voice, and it was growing stronger. Summer in southern Alabama had a way of stretching time. Mornings came slow and golden, and the air held a quiet heaviness, like it knew things people hadn't said yet. Days after Noah wrote his name, a new rhythm began to settle over the Carter home. Jada introduced a routine. Morning walks to the lake, afternoons with art and music, evenings reading stories on the porch until the fireflies blinked to life. Noah responded to it with a subtle openness. He still didn't speak, but his presence was no longer sealed away. Miles watched his son closely, not with worry, with awe. He hears everything, Miles said one morning as he and Jada walked beside the lake. Always has. Even when we thought he was shut off. He's been listening, Jada replied. To the world. To us. To the silence. They paused by the water's edge. Noah skipped a stone, then surprised them both by clapping softly at the splash. He laughed, Jada said, stunned. Miles nodded, stunned too. He laughed. That night, Miles pulled down a dusty box from the hallway closet. Inside were photos, memories, pieces of the life they used to have when Grace was still with them. Jada found him sitting cross-legged on the floor, flipping through the pictures slowly, like he was touching ghosts. She was always better at this, he said. She knew how to reach him, how to listen. Jada sat beside him. You're reaching him now. Miles handed her a photograph. It showed Grace holding Noah on her hip, both laughing in the garden behind the house. Noah couldn't have been older than 2. She used to sing to him, Miles said. Always the same song. It had this line about stars and home. I haven't thought about it in so long. Do you remember the melody? He nodded. Sing it to him, she said. That evening, while Noah lay under a blanket on the porch swing, Miles sat beside him and quietly sang the lullaby. The notes came slowly, rough from disuse, but true. Noah turned his head slightly. His eyes shimmered. By the end of the song, Noah reached out. Not for the music box, for his father's hand. Jada watched from the kitchen doorway, her heart full. Later that week, something changed. It was a Tuesday afternoon. They had just finished painting together. Jada had given Noah a canvas and 3 colors. He worked silently, focused. When he turned the painting around, Miles froze. It was a face. His mother's face. Grace. Painted from memory, with startling detail and warmth. Miles swallowed hard. Did you remember this all along? Noah didn't answer, but his hands trembled slightly. He reached for the whiteboard, wrote a new word. Remember. Jada placed a hand on Miles's shoulder. He's showing you. The breakthroughs came in small, tender ways. At the market, Noah made eye contact with a flower vendor and pointed to sunflowers. At the diner, he tapped the table when music played and mouthed the rhythm. Each act, simple to others, was monumental for them. But with progress came something else. Jada noticed it first. The way Miles grew quieter when the sun dipped low. The way he lingered in doorways, watching Noah sleep, as if bracing for something to disappear again. "You're afraid," she said one night. "I'm afraid this is too good," Miles admitted. "Like I'm gonna wake up and lose him all over again." "You won't. I lost Grace in a moment, Jada. Just one bad moment. But you didn't lose Noah," she said softly. "You're finding him." Miles looked toward the living room, where Noah sat tracing music notes in a sketchbook. "He's the one finding us," he whispered. A few days later, Jada brought out an old voice recorder from her bag. "I want to try something," she told Noah. "Just for us." She placed it in front of him, pressed record, then waited. The room stayed quiet. Then, like the first notes of a melody long forgotten, Noah made a sound. A word. Soft, but clear. "Dad." Miles dropped the mug in his hand. It shattered against the floor, but he didn't move to clean it. He just stood there, rooted in place, staring at his son, whose lips trembled, whose eyes watered. "Say it again," Miles whispered. Noah looked at him, then spoke it again. "Dad." The word filled the house, not just as a sound, but as a return. Jada pressed stop on the recorder and smiled, tears running silently down her cheeks. It was more than progress. It was a promise. The word "Dad" echoed in Miles's mind for days. It played in his thoughts like a hymn, each syllable rooted in his soul. Something about it shifted the air in the house. It wasn't just that Noah had spoken. It was that Noah had chosen to speak to him. But just as peace began to settle, the past made its presence known again. It began with a phone call. Miles stood at the kitchen counter one morning, pouring coffee into a chipped mug. The phone buzzed, and he answered without thinking. "Miles Carter," a man's voice asked. "Yes. My name is Dr. Harris. I used to work with your wife." Miles froze. "Grace, I've been trying to reach you for months. I sent letters, emails. No reply." "I don't check any of that," Miles muttered. "What do you want?" There was a pause. "I'm in Montgomery for a few days. I think you and your son deserve to know what really happened the night Grace passed." Miles gripped the edge of the counter. "I know what happened." "You know part of it," Harris said gently. "Not all." The line went dead. That evening, Jada found Miles sitting on the porch steps, staring into the dusk. "Something's wrong," she said. He told her about the call. About Dr. Harris. "Do you want to meet him?" she asked. "I don't know. What if I learn something I can't carry? What if you don't learn something you need?" Noah stepped onto the porch, holding the small music recorder. He looked at his father, then at Jada. His eyes carried questions he couldn't voice yet, but they were there, full and clear. Miles exhaled. "I need to know." The next morning, he drove to Montgomery with Noah and Jada by his side. The city felt faster than he remembered. Sharper. The hospital where Grace had worked still stood tall, sterile, and cold in his memory. They met Dr. Harris in a small office behind the research wing. The man looked older than his voice suggested, worn down by time and regret. "Thank you for coming," Harris said. "I know this isn't easy." Miles didn't sit. "Say what you need to say." Harris looked at Noah, who stood close to Jada, fingers wrapped around hers. "Your wife was working on a speech study," Harris began, "focused on neuroplasticity in children with delayed or impaired communication. She believed there was a sensory-emotional link that hadn't been mapped yet." Miles frowned. "She told me some of that. She didn't tell you everything. The night of the accident, she wasn't just driving home. She had been called into the university lab to respond to a grant rejection. She had been pushing too hard, too fast, and when they pulled the funding, she took Noah with her that night." Miles said, voice tight. "She never did that. She didn't want to leave him home alone. You were out of town. She felt like she was failing, at work, as a mother. She thought she had to prove something. She was exhausted, distracted." Miles sank into the chair. "She blamed herself," Harris said. "And in the end, she just wanted someone to believe in her research." "And Noah, what are you saying?" Miles asked. Harris opened a folder and pulled out a worn, spiral-bound notebook. He placed it on the table. She kept notes. Not clinical, personal. She documented every moment with Noah. Every expression, every sound, She believed his silence was not a void, but a form of intelligence we hadn't learned how to hear. Jada leaned forward. "May I?" Harris nodded. She flipped through the notebook. Pages were filled with sketches, notes in looping handwriting, music bars, lyrics, even scraps of fabric with textures glued beside phrases like "he smiled here," or "this one made him flinch." Miles touched the corner of the page. She believed, Harris said quietly, that Noah wasn't behind. He was ahead, that he simply refused to speak in a world that wasn't ready to listen the way he needed. The room grew still. Noah reached for the notebook. His fingers traced a corner where Grace had drawn a picture of a small boy under a tree. Under it, she had written, "He speaks through light, through rhythm. I just have to catch it before it disappears." Noah took the whiteboard from Jada's bag and wrote just one word. "Mom." Miles swallowed hard. "Can I keep this?" "She left it for you," Harris said. She just never got the chance to deliver it. As they walked out of the building, the sky opened up with a sudden, soft rain. Warm, like Alabama knew they needed a cleansing. Back at the house, Miles sat at the kitchen table long after Noah had gone to sleep, the notebook open in front of him. Jada came in quietly. "Is it too much?" she asked. He shook his head. "It's everything." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then maybe now's the time." "For what?" "To keep listening. To what she started. To what he's still trying to say." He closed the notebook and looked toward the hallway where Noah slept. "I will," he said. "This time I will." Morning light spilled through the curtains, casting soft stripes across the floor. Miles sat quietly at the kitchen table. The spiral notebook from Grace spread open before him. The notes, sketches, and phrases seemed to pulse with the weight of a promise, one he had only just begun to understand. Noah was already awake, sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, his eyes bright and attentive. Today felt different. There was a rhythm in the air, a subtle energy, like the hum before a song begins. Miles took a deep breath and walked over to his son. Kneeling down, he gently placed his hand on Noah's shoulder. "Ready for today?" he asked softly. Noah nodded. The weeks of patient observation, the careful tuning into the silent signals, the music lessons, the simple conversations using notes and drawings, all had been leading to this moment. Noah was ready to try again. Jada entered with a whiteboard and marker, her smile warm and encouraging. Together, they set up a small circle in the living room, placing chairs for the three of them. Miles pulled out the old music recorder, the same one Noah had held on the porch weeks ago. Jada began humming a soft melody, her voice gentle and steady. Miles joined in, humming a deep counterpoint. Noah watched, swaying slightly to the rhythm. Then, slowly, he lifted his hands and began tapping on the table. The taps matched the rhythm, forming a pattern, a language in code. Miles's heart pounded. This was more than rhythm. It was communication. Jada scribbled the pattern on the whiteboard, matching each tap to a letter, a word. Then Noah did something new. He opened his mouth. A clear sound, a single syllable. "Duh." Miles's eyes widened. The room seemed to hold its breath. "Dad," Miles whispered, tears streaming down his face. Noah nodded, eyes shining with a light that had been hidden for so long. For the first time since that dark day years ago, Miles heard his son's voice. A voice that held promise. A voice that carried hope. Miles looked at Jada, who smiled through her own tears. The journey ahead was still long, but the silence had finally given something back. And in that moment, Miles knew they could face whatever came next. Months passed since that remarkable morning when Noah first spoke. The house in Alabama was no longer just a place of quiet struggle, but a home filled with laughter, music, and new conversations. Miles found strength in the small victories. A word said aloud, a smile shared, a hand held tightly. The weight of grief still lingered, but it no longer defined them. With Jada's unwavering support and Noah's growing confidence, their family was learning to heal. One afternoon, as sunlight filtered through the magnolia trees, Miles sat on the porch, Noah beside him, humming a familiar tune. Their fingers tapped together in a steady rhythm, a language only they understood. The silence that once separated them had become a bridge. Miles knew the road ahead would have challenges, but now he was ready to walk it, not alone, but with Noah's voice guiding the way. Because sometimes the greatest miracles come not in grand gestures, but in the quiet moments where love speaks the loudest. The end. Moral lessons from the story. The story you've embraced is rich with emotional depth, human connection, and resilience. It explores the struggles of grief, communication barriers, and the power of presence and love. Here, I present a comprehensive analysis of the moral lessons embedded within this narrative, designed to reflect on life, relationships, and healing. 1. The power of showing up. One of the most profound lessons in the story is the importance of simply showing up for those we love, especially when words fail or silence prevails. Miles' journey reveals that healing and connection begin not with perfect words or grand gestures, but with presence. Explanation. In the story, Noah's silence after his mother's death was a barrier that Miles could not cross with logic or force. It was only when Jada, the caregiver, arrived and both she and Miles committed to being present, patient, calm, attentive, that Noah began to express himself again. Presence became a language beyond words. Life application. Often, when someone we care about is struggling, we feel compelled to fix the problem or find immediate solutions. But the story reminds us that what people often need most is someone who will simply be there, undistracted, attentive, and steady. Showing up is the foundation of trust and healing. Reflection. Think about moments when you felt truly seen and supported, not because someone told you what you wanted to hear, but because they were there with you through the silence. This presence can be transformative. 2. Healing is not linear or instantaneous. The narrative powerfully depicts healing as a gradual process, full of setbacks and small victories. Neither Miles nor Noah experiences overnight change. Instead, progress is slow, uneven, and often difficult. Explanation. Noah's return to communication, starting with nonverbal cues and culminating in his first spoken words, is a journey marked by frustration and breakthrough. Miles' own emotional healing follows a similar path, moving from denial and grief to acceptance and hope. Life application. Healing from trauma, loss, or hardship rarely follows a straight line. This story encourages patience with others and with ourselves. It urges us to celebrate small milestones and accept setbacks as part of growth. Reflection. Consider areas of your life where you have been impatient for change. Reflect on how honoring your own pace and that of others can foster more genuine healing. 3. Communication extends beyond words. Noah's experience illustrates that communication is not limited to spoken language. His emotions, needs, and thoughts find expression through gestures, sounds, and tactile cues. Recognizing these alternative forms is crucial for connection. Explanation. Jada's use of emotion cards and her sensitivity to Noah's nonverbal signals help bridge the gap between silence and understanding. She shows that listening is more than hearing words. It is perceiving and honoring all the ways a person expresses themselves. Life application. In daily interactions, we may overlook the subtle cues people give. Learning to listen with eyes, hands, and heart opens deeper understanding and empathy. This lesson extends beyond disability or trauma to all human relationships. Reflection. Practice noticing nonverbal cues in your own life. How can you be more attuned to others' feelings and needs beyond their spoken words? 4. Vulnerability is strength. Miles' story confronts the cultural and personal barriers that keep men, especially Black men in the southern United States, from showing vulnerability. His growth involves embracing his pain, admitting fears, and allowing himself to grieve openly. Explanation. The narrative challenges toxic masculinity, norms that equate vulnerability with weakness. Miles' eventual acceptance of his feelings and his willingness to ask for help demonstrate that true strength lies in emotional honesty. Life application. Opening up emotionally can be daunting, especially in communities where stoicism is prized. This story encourages breaking those barriers to foster genuine connection and mental well-being. Reflection. Consider how vulnerability has played a role in your own life. When have you found strength through openness? How might embracing vulnerability deepen your relationships? 5. The importance of community and support systems. Throughout the story, The presence of Jada as a caregiver and friend highlights how no one heals alone. Community and support systems provide the scaffolding for recovery and growth. Explanation: Jada is more than a caregiver. She is a bridge between Miles and Noah, a source of stability and encouragement. Her role underscores that professional and emotional support are both vital. Life application: seeking help, whether from friends, family, or professionals, is not a sign of weakness, but a vital step in healing. Building and nurturing supportive networks improves resilience. Reflection: reflect on your support systems. How do you nurture them? When have you benefited from reaching out or allowing others to help? 6. Love communicates beyond tragedy. The story presents love as a persistent force that endures loss and pain. Despite Kelly's death, her presence remains felt in the home and hearts of Miles and Noah. Explanation: love here is shown as something that transcends physical presence. It survives through memories, rituals, and the continued commitment of those left behind. Life application: grieving a loss does not mean letting go of love. Instead, it means learning to carry love differently. This realization can offer comfort and connection in the aftermath of loss. Reflection: think about how you carry the memory of loved ones. How does their love continue to shape your life and choices? 7. Patience and compassion are essential for working with trauma. Monica's earlier story about her own childhood struggles mirrors the broader theme that trauma requires delicate handling. Her compassion for Eli and Jada's for Noah teach that healing comes from patience and understanding. Explanation: trauma is often invisible and misunderstood. The story shows that reacting with impatience or frustration can harm rather than help. Compassion creates a safe space for growth. Life application: when supporting someone with trauma, practicing patience and compassion is key. Recognizing that behaviors are often survival mechanisms allows for gentler, more effective responses. Reflection: how do you respond when others struggle or behave in ways that challenge you? How might increasing your compassion transform those interactions? 8. Small gestures can have huge impact. The story is filled with small moments: a touch, a smile, a hand gesture that marks significant emotional milestones. Explanation: Noah's simple act of tapping his chest to say proud, or the drawing of the heart on the menu reveals how minor actions can carry deep meaning. These moments are the bricks that rebuild connection. Life application: we often underestimate the power of small acts of kindness, attention, or affection. These moments accumulate to create lasting bonds. Reflection: recall small gestures that made a big difference in your life. How can you incorporate more of these in your daily relationships? 9. Acceptance of imperfection in parenting and caregiving. Miles' admission that he does not know how to do this without screwing it up reflects the universal challenge of parenting or caregiving. The story embraces imperfection and emphasizes intention over perfection. Explanation: there is no perfect manual for parenting a grieving, nonverbal child. What matters is the willingness to learn, adapt, and remain committed. Life application: this lesson applies beyond parenting to all forms of care. Accepting imperfection reduces guilt and opens the door to genuine growth. Reflection: how do you deal with your own mistakes or perceived failures? How might embracing imperfection foster resilience? 10. Trauma can silence, but it can also speak. Noah's silence after his mother's death is a powerful metaphor for how trauma can freeze communication and expression. Yet, with care, that silence can become a new form of speech. Explanation: the story shows that silence is not absence, but a form of communication that requires interpretation and respect. Life application: recognizing and respecting silence in ourselves and others can deepen empathy and understanding. Reflection: reflect on times when silence has spoken to you or when you've had to listen beyond words. 11. Healing requires collaboration and shared vulnerability. The partnership between Miles and Jada highlights how healing is a collaborative process. Neither acts as a savior. Both learn and grow together. Explanation: Jada helps Miles see Noah's needs more clearly, and Miles grows into his role as a father alongside her guidance. This partnership is based on mutual respect and shared vulnerability. Life application. Healing is rarely a solo journey. Seeking and accepting partnership enriches the process. Reflection. Consider relationships where collaboration has supported growth. How can you foster more mutuality in your connections? 12. Grief is multifaceted and personal. Miles' narrative reveals how grief can take different forms: silent, angry, withdrawn, or visible. It is unique to each individual. Explanation. The story challenges simplistic ideas of grieving, portraying a complex, ongoing process that shapes behavior and relationships. Life application. Understanding grief's many faces helps us support others more effectively. Reflection. How have you experienced grief? How have others supported you through it? 13. Love and connection can transform even deep pain. Ultimately, the story's central message is that love and connection can bring renewal even in the shadow of loss. Explanation. Through patience, presence, and compassion, Miles, Noah, and Jada rebuild a fractured family life. Life application. This is a hopeful reminder that no matter how deep the pain, human connection can restore meaning and joy. Reflection. Think about times when love has helped you or others rise from hardship. Final thoughts. The story of Miles, Noah, and Jada is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the complexity of communication, and the power of presence. It teaches us that healing is an ongoing journey filled with moments of silence, breakthrough, struggle, and joy. By embracing vulnerability, showing up without judgment, and nurturing connection in all its forms, we create space for transformation, for ourselves and those we love. Disclaimer: this story is entirely fictional. Any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental. The purpose of this story is to provide moral lessons, motivation, inspiration, and other forms of learning for viewers. It is not intended as professional advice or a factual account. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this story. I hope it touched your heart and reminded you that healing and hope are always possible, even in the quietest moments. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking the video, share, and subscribing to the channel so you won't miss the next inspiring story we share. Your support helps us keep creating content that uplifts and connects us all. Don't forget to explore the other videos on this channel. There are many more stories waiting to inspire and encourage you. Leave a comment below if you want to share your thoughts or simply say hello. I love hearing from you. Until next time, take care of yourself and those you love.